Hi everyone, Heather Williams here from the California After School Network, and this is our 25th Fireside Chat. As always, joined by Michael Funk from the Department of Education, Expanded Learning Division. And this week we have two special guests from Elk Grove, Erin and Athena McQuarry. Really excited to have you both on and talk about the really good work you've been doing in Elk Grove. Long before, but especially during COVID and the pandemic. And so we'll jump into that in a little bit. But Michael, I know there's been a lot of policy pieces moving. And so I know you have a couple updates on a few pieces around the waivers and audits. So why don't we start there?
Well, I think, Heather, I'd actually like to start with the headline of the day, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, we'll switch then and we'll talk about AB86
Don't want to bury the lead, as they say, but it's been a big day in California. The governor signed the bill AB86. And for those that have been tracking, there was a bill AB104 that we talked about. Then there was the trailer bill from the Department of Finance. Then all of that got converted in the extensive negotiations between the legislature and the governor's office into both Senate Bill and Assembly Bill 86, which were identical. So if you've heard both of those, that's why. The bill that actually got voted on and signed by the governor was AB86. And the section that you probably want to pay the most attention to, I had just written it down here. Hold on, let me pull it up. Is section 43522. It's a big bill. It covers many aspects of school financing and reopening and student and teacher safety and all types of things. But section 43522 is the section that specifically gives instruction on how the lead educational agencies, the grantees, will spend $4.6 billion in what's called the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. And it is called a grant. It is not a competitive grant, but the LEAs do have to fill out and articulate their intention of how they plan to spend the money. And we're not going to go line by line through what it says. We've done a little bit of that before, but if you Google AB86, you'll see it, and you go to that section that I just mentioned, 43522, and it's not a long section, and it's very clear. Things can be interpreted different ways, of course. So it talks about expanded learning time can also mean increasing the number of instructional minutes. So this is not expanded learning as we technically define expanded learning. It shouldn't be confused that because I lead the expanded learning division and that we have an expanded learning system of support, that we are somehow in control of all this money. We will be offering technical assistance and advice, but the bill does encourage, and one of the provisions is the bill, the money can be spent for after-school programs and academic enrichment programs. It says summer school, but we know we define that as summer learning in ways that combine the best of academia and expanded learning. So kind of like summer camp school. But not all districts will know what to do with this. And so we believe it's really important for all of our community partners and all of our district leaders who do know what to do, like Erin and Athena from Elk Grove, who are with us, to be a voice. And that's why we've invited them today. So the one thing I do want to mention is the first version of AB86 that came out actually listed the expanded learning system of support as a partner with the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence in providing various types of technical assistance to the field for this funding. And of course, we were excited about that opportunity. In the negotiations in the final days, that section was taken out. I'm not too concerned about that because we still have a system of support for expanded learning that is funded and is ready. We're starting very intentional meetings next Wednesday and the Wednesday following to make sure that those regional teams are ready and able to provide the best support and guidance to the field. So take a look at the bill. But right now we know that this is a tremendous opportunity. I will say it again. The opportunities we have are there because of the very transformative and effective work that our expanded learning grantees have been doing all through the pandemic. One of the aspects that is allowed in the bill is learning hubs, those places where we take the resources and the staff from expanded learning and combine them and actually provide learning support for children. That's also part of the bill. And there's a provision where the LEAs are strongly encouraged to partner with community-based partners. So we believe this is, and at best, in its best version, is a community approach to supporting our kids and families, communities in partnership with schools. And I, for one, have spent most of my career supporting and working towards that, and to now see this as the primary strategy moving forward to support our reopening of schools couldn't be better for us. So AB 86.
Great. Thanks, Michael. And before we get into the other technical updates, you have one question on AB 86. Kind of the next step now that the bill has been signed is that the superintendent and CDE are charged with developing a template that the LEAs will fill out for this funding. So I imagine that template will be somewhat influential on how districts go about the process of figuring out how they're going to spend this funding. So wondering if you have any updates on how that template might be created at the department.
Yeah, well, the last version of AB 86 that I looked at, I haven't had a chance to double check today, but I believe it said that template was due 21 days after the signing of the bill, which means March 25th. So somewhere about then, there'll be a template posted on the CDE website that districts would fill out to articulate what their plans are. The creation of that template, a group has already started working on that this coming weekend. And expanded learning division and myself and some of my team, which has yet to be determined, will be invited to contribute and help design and review the template before it's released. So expanded learning will be in the mix over the next 21 days.
Great. That's great. All right. Well, then we'll get into the maybe not the headliner, but still important updates around waivers and audits.
And this is where we go into the weeds, and I can't wait for you to hear from Erin and Athena. So very quickly, we've sent this out to all of our grantees, but I just wanted to make sure we mentioned it here. The audits by independent auditors. We're not talking about those sites that are selected for a federal program review, what's called an FPM, the reviews that are conducted by our staff and that have been conducted virtually this year. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the required independent audit by independent auditors that every district is required to have annually. So the board that governs and designs what those auditors do and look at has officially met and determined that the audits for the year, this current school year, year 2020-21, will not audit the ACES 21st century funding. That has been suspended. That audit would have taken place in the school year 2021-22. It's been suspended. It's been suspended for 1 year only. The second, this is some programs have questioned that have been serving school age care of critical infrastructure workers, or somehow we're providing a lot of hours of support and programming for school age children. The education code says you're allowed to provide that up to 30 hours a week. The program to be open, serving kids for 30 hours a week. And when programs wanted to serve more than 30 hours a week, like Elk Grove, um, the provision was made by the Department of Social Services that they could do so without obtaining a license if they applied for a waiver through the Department of Social Services. So, Erin, I think you said you had 17 sites that you did that for, and serving children about 40 hours a week. So, but we've had the question raised, and I think I've even said on the chat that our interpretation would be that if children are involved in something that is counting towards instructional minutes, that those minutes wouldn't count towards the 30 hours, because it doesn't matter what my logic was, it was wrong. We've now had it settled with the Department of Social Services that if the children are in the same program, and if they're enrolled in this program and that's where they're at, it doesn't matter what the funding source is, it doesn't matter what the activities are. If they're under the supervision in this program for more than 30 hours, then a waiver is required. So I just wanted to say that specifically. We haven't talked through how we're going to communicate that in writing. I at least wanted to make sure it was on the record here. And it really doesn't change anything about what the ed code says or the waiver. It's just an interpretation of one of the finer nuances. So Heather, I think that's enough for the weeds.
Yeah, I think it's time to start chatting with Erin and Athena. So maybe we have Erin introduce herself and Athena introduce herself, and then we'll jump into questions.
Sure. My name is Erin Sipes. I am the program specialist over the Office of Expanded Learning for Elk Grove. And I brought with me today my friend Athena. I'll let her introduce herself.
Okay. Hello, my name is Athena McQuarry, and I am the Academic Program Coordinator at David Reese Elementary.
So Erin may be familiar to some of you. She was in this year's Lights On After School awarded, I believe it was the Visionary Leadership Award. Yep. And rightly so. She has been an amazing leader in both Elk Grove and also in the state, serving on many statewide opportunities and committees. And we had a wonderful chat similar to this. We had an extended Lights On After School fireside chat that you might have seen Erin with. But as evidence of her impact and effectiveness, her position at Elk Grove Unified, which is one of the larger districts in Northern California, I believe, I think the largest in the county, correct?
Yeah, it's the 5th largest in the state.
5th largest in the state. Well, her position is a cabinet level position in the district.
It's not cabinet level. I just have access to cabinet. I'm not cabinet level. I'm a program specialist.
Then I misunderstood, but maybe it will be now. Maybe they'll. She has influence at that level, whether that's the title or not, because I know she is involved personally in the district's plans for what they were doing during the pandemic and what they were doing in their planning for reopening. So I know we've got some amazing stories from Athena. Erin, before we go there, can you tell us just a bit about how you're viewing what's ahead of us now with AB86 or the reopening, you know, those aspects of the bill that talk about opening in April. And of course, you've already had kids getting in-person services. So how do you see this? What do you think about it?
Well, we have some interesting things going on. So we are running learning hubs. We call them ACES day camps. And so we started those in the fall, and we have students 5 days a week who are with us for 8 hours a day, 4 meals a day, and they do their distance learning with us. So they're getting access to their classroom through our program. And then we do enrichment with them in the afternoons. And what we've planned moving forward is that when the district reopens and distance learning is no longer the primary mode, and we go into a concurrent transitional model, which is going to be a various cohorts on different days of the week kind of a model. The students are still going to stay with us for those 40 hours, and they'll be able to transition in to see their teacher in person for their 2 days a week. But the need in our community is still that the students are with us full time and that they have the support full time. And so we will continue that service. And Right now, we're getting additional requests for spots in the program because now we have, when you talked about critical workforce earlier, our educators in our own district have been home previously and able to work from home while they were servicing students through distance learning. And now they may be coming back to campus and may need a space for their own students. So that's come up. We've prioritized homeless and foster youth. And so we already are serving those students. And when we put out the request and we invited people to join us, there were some families who didn't feel safe at the time, health-wise, to have their students in the program. But now that the numbers are coming down and folks are starting to feel more safe and they're seeing academic loss or needs in their students, they're more willing to enroll them, and they're desperate to find spaces to have their kids connect and get the help that they need. And so we're starting to see an uptick in needs and enrollment. So if you tell me you have money and opportunity, I've got kids who need to be served.
Athena, you've got personal relationships that go very deep. I know just from our brief conversation before we hit the record button with both your going back years. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with the children and the families that you know.
Well, the closures of the school, as Erin said, did cause a hardship for many of our families. And when we were given the green light to open and operate, to have students in person, there were so many calls coming in, and not only from families, but from teachers wanting, these coveted spots that we had, just at the very beginning, we started with 2 cohorts. So one at the primary level, one at the intermediate level. And so we could only have a maximum of 14 students in each class. So how do you decide whose needs are greater and who would get in? So that was one of the toughest decisions that I had to make, because I understand that, all of our families had a great need. But I was just so excited when our program did open. I had teachers who were calling, they were emailing, and they were telling me, how excited they were to have their students in our program. In one case, actually a couple of cases, teachers had not seen their students on camera until they started in day camp. So that was a huge success. I know that our site was one of the sites in the district that, had a high absentee rate. We had kiddos out there that we couldn't find. And when the day camps opened, we were able to catch some of those kids and have them on the camera and learning. So that was huge.
Tell me what it's been like for your staff that are working with these children in this time.
Well, when we put out the call that, hey, we need staff, we're going to have kids in person, there were some of our paraeducators who were given the opportunity to choose to come and work in person. So, and I was fortunate enough to get one of those paraeducators from a different site to come over to our site and work with the kids. And she was excited just to be out of the house, and to be around children, and bringing her level of expertise to the staff that we had to hire, anew in order to run our programs. It was just awesome. The staff, they all work really well with each other. They keep their line of communications open with the classroom teachers, through email, trying to find out what the student needs are. Some are really, passionate about some of their own craft ideas or dance routines. So they were excited to be able to bring that to the students. So I think, it was a win-win, because not only for adults being at home, full time, the children, were able to come and be on campus. The adults were able to come and be on campus. So
I'm seeing with your body language and your face kind of light up when you talk about the children coming and being there. And it's just, it's obvious that that's such a powerful moment for them in their social emotional support and development. How do you see that continuing growing with these new opportunities? Do you see, that's either for you, Athena, or Erin? What do you see for Elk Grove specifically? Maybe you're still in planning, and if so, what does that look like?
That we have a lot going on in planning right now. So we are preparing to bring our students back on campus, like I said. So we have that coming up. We're also planning for our summer learning. And so we have the staff that we have for our current day camp models, it's less staff than we previously employed in our after school model, but a lot of our staff in after school were paraeducators and other staff members who worked for the district during the day who were able to stay beyond the day. And what's great about this opportunity is we have new staff that we've hired that hadn't been in the field previously. And now they've had training and they've had opportunities to learn in a small group. We've got a community of practice going on at one of our sites that has gotten really creative, and they've got their paraeducators determining what data to look at next to try to help with social emotional growth for students. And so these are in-depth conversations that you don't always get to have in a 3-hour after school program when people are coming from their day jobs or their college classes. And now we have people there full-time all day. And so the depth of knowledge, the depth of understanding. So we are hoping to keep these folks with us. So we're already talking about, what we can do to incorporate their skills and their experience in our summer learning programs, and how we can combine them with some, we don't yet know what it's going to look like in the fall, but we know we're going to have kids and we know we're going to have needs. And now we know we have staff. So that seems like a good equation for putting something together. So there's a lot of proposals and planning and things that are happening at that level too.
I'm reminded, Heather, that there's another update. I mean, we're getting questions daily from our partners in the field. Will we have the same flexibility next year that we've had this year? And I believe so. Let me just tell you where it's at in the process. We put together language to submit to our governmental affairs that specifically lists what elements, sections of Ed Code need to be suspended again to provide the same flexibility that we provided this year. That language was delivered to the Department of Finance a week ago today. Typically, we wouldn't see a version of that language surface until what's called the May revision of the budget. So, that's 2 months from now. And that's not going to be helpful to any of you who are trying to plan, especially with the release of AB86 today. So I've inquired, and our leadership here has acknowledged that, yeah, this is an unusual situation because AB86, it takes effect immediately. It doesn't wait until July 1 to take effect. And programs are going to need to know. So we're going to be in dialogue sooner than later with the various stakeholders in the legislature and Department of Finance to see if we can get at least something a little more firm out to you so you can plan. But at this point, I have not heard anything from any stakeholder in the legislature, Department of Finance, or within our building that says anything about not having the same flexibility. When we negotiated that flexibility a year ago, we had no idea we'd still be in this situation a year later. And even though there's amazing things happening and so many things to be optimistic about, we don't know when it's really going to be safe for all of our kids to be in the classroom together at the same time? We really don't know. So we know that flexibility of the same type is needed. So I wanted to just say that. And then let me put it back to you, Erin. Do you see anything in that, if you had the same flexibility, what would that mean for you to be able to plan and work?
Well, currently our model is it's working, it's effective. I think we've learned a lot, and I think we could continue it and improve on it. There's a need to expand it. We have a large district and we're serving smaller than the need in the district. And so there's other sites we would like to expand it to. Our middle schools are interested in opening up programs, and right now we only have it at the elementary level. Our middle schools are running programs, but they're virtual support programs, and we'd like to do in person. So I think that depending on what the regular school day looks like, that's going to be the big deciding factor. But if we're in a situation where only half of the students at a time can be on campus, then there's definitely going to be a continued need, probably an increased need to provide the same programming. And of course, we've been able to hire and train staff, but we haven't met capacity. We still have openings. We would like to have more staff. And so we're currently negotiating with community partners to try to see if they can help with recruiting, if they have staff who they want to subcontract and join forces. And so those conversations are happening, and we are hoping for the potential to expand the program that way as well. So I think if there's a continued need, then we could continue to meet the need.
Thank you, Erin. And as we begin to close down, turn it back to Heather here in a minute, but Athena, can you just describe what a typical day is for one of your students when they come to your program?
Yeah, so when students enter our program, they are greeted by staff. We have an LVN that's out there as well, that can do, visual checks, help with the visual checks. Oftentimes, they may not have a mask. We can provide a mask at that time. They are then escorted to their classroom, walking 6 feet apart, making sure that they are keeping their distance. They get a breakfast, and after their breakfast, they are logging on. They have support from our paraeducators to help get them logged on for their instruction. They are provided a snack, lunch, and a grab-and-go supper. When their day is over with their online instruction, they have opportunities to engage in different enrichment activities with outside programming. Or, like as I mentioned before, we do have some of our paraeducators. They are passionate about their own, crafts or things that they do. So they may take the kids out and they'll do a dance routine, or they'll play a structured type activity. So we realize that the kids are sitting for long periods of time. So we want to make sure that the kids are, getting outside and getting some physical, activity as well. So we try to find different ways to let that happen, and not just necessarily at the end of the program, but, during their breaks. We may have a yard supervisor who can take kids out and let them walk around. Sometimes, we know that many of our kids are experiencing, a lot that's going on. And so they might need to just go out and take a mental break. So that could mean walking the track that we have. Early on, the students, along with our PE teacher, created what's called a pathway, sensory pathway. That's the name of it. And so I think what was really cool about that is that the kids got to go out there and paint it on the blacktop. And so whenever they just feel the need that they want to get outside and move around, they can follow the sensory pathways and then get back inside and refocus and continue with their online instruction.
Sounds like a place I'd want my child for sure. Athena, thank you for your passion, your leadership, your love for these children, and
Thank
your
you for having me.
years in service.
Yes.
Erin,
so
thank you
much.
for your leadership and creativity. And I'll turn it back to Heather.
Yeah, I also just want to thank you both for coming on and joining us this afternoon, and all the work you've been doing day in, day out through COVID. We know it's long hours and a lot of things changing day to day. So we appreciate all that you've done to not just serve your students, but to serve your communities, your families as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And we're gonna keep having these fireside chats. There's a lot of policy updates happening regularly. There's a lot of planning that needs to happen at the local level. So we will continue to bring these stories and folks that can share out what all the amazing work that they've been doing. So thank you both so much. And with that, Michael, any closing words for us today?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is such an this is an opportunity that has never surfaced in education in our field. 4.6 billion folks. It's time to step up and make sure that these resources are directed so every child receives what they deserve. Every child receives what they deserve, and that's our best. That's our best. They deserve to be supported. They need to be, we should be creating the conditions for our staff and our students to become their best humans and develop and thrive. So let's do it. And as I always close, let's lead with love. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.